Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about the 4.27 release of the ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript. Please let us know where you're joining us from in the chat. I see we have some people from all over the United States. Do we have anyone from outside of the United States? Anyone joining from another country? Let us know in the chat where you're coming from. So first, we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves, give you a little fun fact about us, and then we'll start going through some of the demos for 4.27. So my name is Ann Fitz. I'm a product engineer on the JavaScript SDK. And a fun fact about me is that I love to cook. And some of my favorite things to make are sushi and homemade pasta. So next, I'm going to pass it to Julie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Julie, and I work as product manager for the JavaScript SDK. I'm joining from Encinitas, California. And I will hand it off to Arno.
You forgot your fun fact.
Oh my God.
Or was that the last?
I thought you might notice that I skipped that. Okay, well.
We need a fun fact.
I lived in Spain. I cried a lot for the first year as I tried to learn Spanish and make friends. And then it turned out to be great in the end. Was that fun?
Yes, that was fun. Thanks. So my name's Arno. I'm joining from Zurich. I'm the 3D developer evangelist of the 3D JavaScript API. And I guess my fun fact is also about growing up in the mountains. First few years with in a small town village, 300 inhabitants, and the first few years in primary school, the first 6 years, we were only 3 people in our class.
Wow.
And I'll pass it on to Tristan.
All right, hi everyone. I'm Tristan Morrison. I'm a software engineer on the JavaScript SDK team, and I work primarily on our editing components, so the editor widget, as well as the other widgets that are involved in that, the feature form widget, feature templates, anything editing related. I'm joining you all from near Leesburg, Virginia. It's outside of DC. And my fun fact is that my wife and I live and work on a horse farm. So in addition to working at my desk, I'm also outside working a lot in the barn.
That's pretty fun.
He has a horse named Dorito. It's awesome. Lauren, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go. I'm Lauren. I'm a product engineer for the JavaScript SDK team. I'm probably the only one on the call by headquarters in Redlands right now. A fun fact about me is I'm actually SoCal born and raised. And so I have been to Disneyland over 200 times in my life. So just because I've had annual passes, I don't pay for per ticket. I know that people are very shocked when I say that, but I have grown up here all my life. So I'll pass it to Noah.
All right. Hi, I'm Noah Sager. I'm a product engineer also on the ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript team. And my fun fact is I memorized every number in order. So with that, I'll pass it. You got to do something during the pandemic. So I did that. I'll pass it on to Sage.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sage Wall. I live just outside of Denver, Colorado. And I'm a product engineer on the JavaScript SDK team. My fun fact is I actually used to be an archaeologist that could code. And slowly I've turned that around. And so now I'm a product engineer who does archaeology on the weekends.
Nice. And last but not least, David.
Hello, everybody. I'm David, joining from Zurich as well. I'm a software developer on the ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript 3D team. And I'm involved a lot with editing as well on the 3D side, rendering and visualization or analysis across the board kind of. And my fun fact is I like doing music, and sometimes I that I'm using on the streets. Yeah, that's
Awesome. All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for introducing yourselves. And thank you, everyone who's joining us live. I see we have people from all over the world. It's really awesome to see Ghana, Canada, Alaska, Indonesia, just naming off a few. Really, really great that you're joining us here today. So I just want to say before we get into the demos, feel free to add comments, add questions in the chat. We're going to be monitoring that as we go. So if you have a question that comes up during any of the demos, pop it in the chat and we'll get to it as soon as we can. With that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Tristan, who's going to talk about some of the editing enhancements in 4.27.
Yes, so the major editing enhancement this release is we have finally introduced support for editing related records. And so if you're not familiar with related records, they're essentially the ArcGIS version of joining records in a database with foreign keys. So there you can have features in one layer that are somehow related or linked to features in other layers or tables. So for this release, we only support editing related records in tables, that non-spatial tables, as opposed to featured layers. So additional support for feature-to-feature relationships will be coming next release. But for now, I'd like to show you what we have in this release. So this is just a very simple application using the editor widget. And I'll show you just to prove the point. This is the source code for, oh, I'm not sharing the whole screen. Well, take my word for it. The source code for this app is 18 lines. So there's not a lot of configuration that goes into this in the application code. The configuration is done in the form template. And you can define a form template without writing any code in Map Viewer using the form authoring tools or using field maps. And so I've configured my form ahead of time. And now all I need to do is bring an instance of the editor widget into this application. And it's referencing a web map. And I can select this feature. And this table, or this feature layer, NZ parcels, has two tables that are related to it, permits and owners. And so permits is a one-to-one relationship. Each parcel can only have one permit at a time. And so this is the permit that's related to this parcel. And so you see I was able to click on that. And now I can either go back to editing the parcel that I was editing, or I can make changes to this. Let's say that I've gotten an extension on this permit, and so we want to change the expiration date and update. And so it submitted those updates, and it brought me right back to editing the parcel that I was editing. And now let's take a look at the other related table, the owners table. A parcel can have multiple owners. And so here we see that there are two owners for this parcel. And I also have the option to create an additional owner, to add a new record to the owners table. So I can click the add record button and I can do that. Oh gosh, my colleague Jose named the previous owners after NBA players. And I'm not sure that I can, well.
What about LeBron James?
Yeah, I got that one. Go. I was trying to not go for the very lowest hanging fruit, but I guess that's where we're at. And now I can hit the create button and it creates that record. And now I can see there's this additional related record here.
Awesome. Well, we have a question in the chat. Really quick, Tristan. The question is, when is this related records editing available for non-hosted layers? For example, enterprise databases?
That's a great question. Support for editing related records in enterprise layers, whether they're hosted or non-hosted Arc objects, feature services, that will be coming in Enterprise 11.2. It's in the next version of Enterprise, which will be, I believe, later this year. And so as soon as the services support the things that the editor widget needs in order to make related record editing work, you'll be able to, it'll just start working. There won't be any additional changes required. You won't have to wait for the next version of the JavaScript API.
Great, thank you. All right, well, maybe, Tristan, are you all done with your demo? We can hand it off to the next person.
Yes, I think if there are no other questions, I'll hand it off to the next person.
Awesome. All right, so next we're gonna pass it off to Arno and David to talk about some of the 3D updates.
Looks like you can see my screen already. Yeah, first thing I'd like to talk about is a new type of basemap that we support in scene view, which are web scenes. So this release, we only support web scenes coming from the Living Atlas. One of them is the new topographic 3D basemap that I'm going to select here. In the future, you will be able to provide your own basemaps, but for now, it's the one that we provide out of the box here, showing the basemap gallery sample. And we see here on the globe view that the basemap comes with some specific new styles and also some new 3D labels that now orient according to, so they're always orienting according to the view. And when we zoom in, we also see some new improved deconfliction. So with the labels that we have here, we have different sizes for countries and cities and areas. And what happens is that the deconfliction actually takes into account the size of the label. So when they do conflict, then the more important labels that are larger remain in the view. In general, we worked on the labeling improvements. You also see that here on the draped basemap, making sure that they're no longer cut off. And we also are more consistent with the map view, is that in the scene view, you can also now load static fonts directly that we provide here. Or it's described here in the guide how to access those fonts that are, for example, also used in the vector tile layer base maps. So you can also use them now directly in your custom web apps. I'm going to zoom in a bit further.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you
please.
really quick. There's a question in the chat. The 3D labels, can they be in different languages other than English?
Generally, yes, you would. So the layer does, I think it does provide different languages in other attributes. However, you would have to go in and apply the styling yourself. It's quite comprehensive, but you could theoretically do this with the data that we're showing here. So the label layer is essentially a point scene layer that you could change the way the labels are displayed and also access a different attribute, localized attribute. So zooming into Paris here to show some of the other features of the 3D basemap. So we now have the trees and the OSM buildings that we already provided as layers. They're now part of this basemap, and you automatically get these when selecting the basemap without having to go and search for the layers and add them to your scene. The label layer also provides things like points of interest, places, together with icons that we see here. We can zoom in a bit further, and then we see some of the visual improvements that we added to the SDK. Now, for example, sharper labels and also edges, even though if we scroll here, have a closer look into at the source code, even though the quality profile is medium. So what happens is that in medium, if you're not navigating, if you're not interacting with the scene, we increase the quality that is shown for basically the resolution for the labels. We add effects like ambient occlusion, which vanishes when you navigate. But then once the scene becomes static again, we add these effects to the scene. So the benefit of this is basically that all users, no matter what device and what browser they are, get the best quality possible without you as developers having to go and change the quality settings directly on the scene view. Yes, and I think that is all I wanted to say for the basemap sample. So I'm going to, no, sorry, one more thing. This is not related to the basemap, but it's another aspect of this improved quality when you're not interacting with the scene. So this is another sample that we have in the SDK. It's a flood sample where we visualize a flood layer, just a polygon layer with a water symbology with this integrated mesh of Utrecht to basically visualize what a flood would look like in the city. And what we have here is another one of those effects that we add, even if the quality profile is just medium. Before you had to set this to high in order to get these reflections on the water. You now get them also on medium quality. When you interact with the scene, they will go away. But once the view becomes stationary, they're added then to the view. All right, want to go back to the 3D basemap one more time, and here we're in Scene Viewer, where you can also select this new basemap directly in the basemap gallery. And additionally to that, we have more options to also tweak what part of the basemap are shown. So, for example, we can hide or show all the buildings, but we can also mask out specific buildings, like here. By drawing a polygon. So if you wanted to visualize your own 3D data in this area, you can mask out whatever's there. And then persist this in the web scene and, for example, use it then afterwards, load it in a custom JavaScript SDK app, and you will have this mask and basemap already applied to that web scene. One more thing I wanted to point out, the 3D basemap comes with schematic trees, and what we did add in the last release for basically in Scene Viewer, but also for the JavaScript SDK is a new web style, which is called low poly vegetation. So it's something between the realistic and the schematic vegetation that we already had. And I'm going to load the same trees here by hiding them in the basemap, quickly adding them back through the Living Atlas. Oh, gotta press enter. So these are the realistic ones. And I'm going to go in just to give you an idea what they look like. Applying this new web style symbol here in Scene Viewer, low poly vegetation. So for example, we can create a forest here in New York with a bunch of firs, which add a unique styling to your scenes with this type of trees. Or we can also add one of those desert willows, which are also interesting, add some colors to your scene. So to give you more options, basically, to visualize your scene in a different way. And yeah, these come out of the box, either in Scene Viewer or through the JavaScript SDK. And for one more 3D topic, I'd like to hand over to David now.
Cool, yeah. So, maybe let's share my screen. Yes, so another big feature we introduced, and this is a beta feature, is scene layer editing. So here I'm playing a video of the scene layer editing feature, where we basically are able to now use the editor widget, and this is fully integrated in Scene Viewer as well, to basically upload 3D models into a scene layer. And here you see in the upload dialog, you can select files, and you can select files of a lot of different file formats. So here we have FBX or IFC files or OBJ files, like GLTF files. So the scene layer will take care of taking these files, storing them with a platform, and also actually provides the conversion to output formats which are relevant to your projects. And then it basically will update the content of the scene layer for you. So here we basically are uploading the model, and now we can place the model in the scene, and you can use the transform to position the model in the scene, and you create the feature, and then you can add additional files from different formats, and this will all, like the storing of the files in the scene layer and the conversion will all handle transparently by the scene layer for you. You just place the models and then they will be with the service. So this is important, that the models will be stored with the service. And this allows you to basically go in and update 3D object scene layers. And up to this point, it was only possible to update attributes, but now you can also update the geometry. You can move the objects around, you can delete them, you can add them, and so on. And the scene layer, so for when you were updating the attributes, those were stored in an associated feature layer, and also the geometry is now stored in this associated feature layer. And when you update the scene layer itself is also an optimization of the content of the scene. And in order to benefit from the optimization, you have to do this process which we call cooking. So here there's an online, you have the item here, and then if you go to settings, you can go down and you can click this button here, rebuild cache, and this cache we are building the optimization data structure, which allows us to more efficiently display the data in this scene. So if you have a lot of edits, then you want to rebuild the cache. You can also schedule the recache, the rebuilding in certain time intervals. It's up to you. And what happens then is that the associated layer, the associated feature layer, which holds all the geometry and attributes, will be used to basically generate the new optimized structure. And I would suggest, if you want to go further into the details, to go into the documentation, and there on the reference page we have this section called Working with Scene Layers, and here we basically outline the different. There's a lot of types of different scene layers, and we are talking about the 3D object scene layer, which you can now also edit. And here you have some comments on the publishing, and here this relationship with the associated feature layer is also described. And as I mentioned, you can basically now edit this, and this is already integrated in SceneViewer, which uses the editor widget. But if you are a developer and you have a custom application, you can use the editor widget in your app. And for this, there's this sample code where we also explain the editor widget and how it works with 3D. So if you create the editor widget, it will recognize all the layers in the scene and provide the editing capabilities straight away out of the box. And this, as I mentioned, this is in beta, so there might be some hiccups and so on, but there are some hiccups. But yeah, it would be cool. Please try it out and give us feedback on how it works for you. And yeah, we are very excited about this new capability, because it kind of brings the API further from an API for visualizing things to also like being able to really edit data and opens a new space of possibilities with API applications.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David and Arno. We do have some questions in the chat. So first I want to ask, does the 3D edit workflow work in Experience Builder?
You want to take that, David, or?
Arno, if you have something you want to say, go ahead.
So basically, if you have the layer published and you use the editor widget, which I'm pretty sure you can add in Experience Builder, it should work out of the box. Everything is implemented in the editor widget, so support for uploading and placing these 3D models.
Awesome. And the next question is, I saw that export data, is it possible to export a 3D scene from the JavaScript API?
So yeah, we don't offer exporting, like you cannot basically have a scene layer and basically dump that into a file for you to consume straight away. So the scene layer offers the possibility to query basically the features. So if you uploaded a feature using like an OBJ file, for example, you can then go and say, I want this feature as a GLB file, like a Collada, like a GLTF binary file, or I want this as an FBX file. And the service is doing the conversion, so you can basically query the features individually. So you cannot get the whole scene, but what you can do is you can query the individual features, and you can decide the format you want the feature to get as. And you have to, just a minor note, you have to configure the layer to allow exporting the data into the different file formats, because the conversion takes up some resources, and you have to opt in basically into being able to download the different file formats. But this is always also a property of the project, which data you want to support as a download. But yeah, to summarize, you cannot get the whole scene in one command, but you can iterate over all features. You can download all the different features and the geometry in a file format of your choice.
Awesome. And then a few more 3D questions. Is there a way to randomly rotate the trees to add variation to the assets?
Amazing. We're not used to that many 3D questions. So try to keep it short. we have had that request before. It's very specific, like, hey, can you add a checkbox for that in Scene Viewer? You can do it through the JavaScript SDK rotation variable. You can also combine it with a size variable to have some variance in the size and rotation of the trees. And essentially, what you do is add a arcade expression in value expression. Just return a random number, and you can also persist that in the web scene.
Okay, great. And then last question is just about, can you speak to the performance of editing data in a browser app? And
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is a good question, and we are aware that this is because models can be super large, so there is always this consideration of model size, like how much memory they take. This affects the performance of the browser, because large memory models basically eat up browser resources, but also in terms of upload, right? So if you have a very big model, it will take a long time to upload, it will take longer to upload, and it will take more resources to display. And here the cooking is super important, and this is why I actually mentioned this, because this is a detail which can be overlooked easily. So if you do a lot of editing on your scene layer, the performance will go down, because what we do is we basically have to deviate from the optimized data format, and we have to kind of bring in the edit features individually, and they come in at full size. So what we do when you go on the online portal and you do the rebuild cache, the caching is really a very sophisticated method to turn the geometry into a very optimized data structure. And so here we do level of detail techniques, we do texture compression, so we will convert the textures to basis textures. So we do a lot of things to make it to make the scene work very well with your client, and we use this all over the board. So so in terms of performance, if you do editing, you upload a lot of models. Upload will take time, the larger the models are, and it will also bring down the performance. But once you do the caching, once you rebuild the cache, the performance will go up again. So yeah, this is something which we have to make users aware of.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you to David and Arno for the awesome 3D demos. And thank you everyone for all of your questions. Keep them coming. We love to see all of the questions. So next up, we're going to pass it to Lauren to talk about some pop-up enhancements and the feature widget.
Thanks, Anne. So if you have ever wanted to display information that's displayed within your pop-up, like charts, related records, things like that, but you've wanted it outside of the view, not necessarily within the view, overlaying the visualization of the map, we have a new widget called the Features widget that lets you do this. So Features widget is pretty much the same as the pop-up widget, except you can pull it outside of the view and doesn't have to be tied to the view itself. So we have this sample app where I have the Features widget set up, and all I'm doing is creating a new Features widget, tying it to my view, and then using reactive utils to look at the click event and open up the features widget when I click on the map. And right now I'm displaying the features widget within a calcite shell panel. So it works very well with calcite, but you can put it in any outside container outside of your map view. It looks the same, pretty similar to popup. If I enable the pop-ups again to kind of compare the two and click and open, it's pretty similar, right? We have the same content, same charts, related records are displayed. We have a way to paginate a page between the features that are selected, just like the pop-up. We have a feature menu, so you can select which feature you want to look at and display within the features widget, along with a way to add custom actions. So it's pretty much the same as the pop-up, just you can use it outside. If you want to use this, it ties together good with calcite. This example shows that. So this is one of our samples that we have available at this release. It's currently in beta, so things may change, maybe the look, but it's going to all function the same as it will, or as it does now. So this is the features widget, but I also wanted to point out that we have new updates for pop-ups themselves, visual design updates. If you couldn't tell already, we have a new color ramp that's default. So for charts, pie charts, line charts, bar charts, we have this nice new aesthetically pleasing color ramp that shows your data. It used to be really bright colors that were showing up. So our UI UX team designed these new colors for you. We have a new experience for paging between charts and media. So say if you have images or charts and you have multiple that you want people to look at, you can page through and it shows how many items you have in this media carousel. So the media info allows you to show the end user how many items they could look at and compare. We also added a new pagination experience for the features themselves. So say if you click a feature or click on a spot on the map and multiple features are returned, you're able to page through these features. So now we have new arrow buttons here that look a little bit better, and they have a calcite feel to them so that it's more unified with how we integrate calcite into our API. And we also added a button. So, well, it's not an added button, but previously people thought that you couldn't open up the features menu, or it wasn't obvious that you could click on the numbers of the features that were returned and it opened up that feature menu. So now we added an icon here on this button so people can understand that, hey, I can open this up and go and find a different feature maybe that was returned. If you want more details, there's a lot of information about what changed with visuals about how it used to look versus how it looks now. There's a blog article about all the different changes that were made and updates that were made to make the pop-up look better. And this is just the beginning of us kind of modifying the pop-up and making it work better for your end users. But so lots of changes, and so hopefully you guys have enjoyed them so far, and give us any feedback that you have on the design.
There's a quick question for you about the features widget. Is it possible to tie the info displayed on the panel to the printing widget, or just print out what's in the feature panel?
So no, just because that is tied to that feature information. I don't believe you can, because what I think with the printing widget, it prints out whatever is in the map view. We have Noah here, so correct me if I'm wrong, Noah. And so since this widget lives outside of that, it's not included within that printout, I believe. Yeah, unfortunately, no.
Okay,
But
and
yeah,
then another.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
The next question is it possible to add data to display as related records? So for example, you query an object on a feature layer, fetch related information, and then display it in the pop-up.
Yeah, you can wire up kind of your own way of displaying custom content within the pop-up and use the related records query method that's on the feature layer. There's a specific way to query those related data from that feature, and then you can create some content within your pop-up to display whatever you want. I know that's kind of what we do with the related records relationship content that we have available that we created. So that kind of does the same thing. But yeah, if you're looking to put specific stuff, you can always build that out within your pop-up template.
Awesome. And I think you could also use Arcade to query for related data and then display it in your pop-up however you would like. So
yes.
Yeah. So one of the users just said that they use Arcade for this too. So awesome. Okay, I think next we're going to move on to Noah, who's going to talk about the Places service. Thanks so much, Lauren, for your demos.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Anne. All right, support for new places. First, I want to tell you that the Places service was released in beta and is currently only available if you have an ArcGIS Online developers account. So the Places service is a ready-to-use location service that can search for businesses and interesting geographic locations around the world. It allows you to find, locate, and discover detailed information about each place. Now note this is a completely new service and is separate from the previous geocoding and routing services. Now let's take a look at the Places documentation. Here we'll find more detailed information, code snippets, and the three methods available to us. So first we have the fetch place method. This will return details about a specific place based on its ID. We also have query places near points. This will search for places within a given radius around a location. And then we have query places within extent. This will search for places inside a given extent. Let's look at an example. So here we can see the find nearby places and details sample that allows a user to select a category. So we'll go ahead and we'll search for landmarks and outdoors. Then we're going to click on the map and we'll search somewhere around here, Millennium Park. And then the left here, we get our results. This is going to show the first 10 results from the search. We're going to click on CloudGate to try to get some more detailed information. And here it opens up the pop-up and we can see the CloudGate is locally also known as the bean because us local Midwesterners love the bean. And now we can go ahead and look at the actual Places service documentation. This is where you can find out more information about the Places service. You can also see we have the same known limitations here about it being in beta and requiring a developer's account. And that is the new Places service. So thank you, and I'll hand it back to Anne.
Awesome. Thanks, Noah. All right, I'm not seeing any questions, because you did such a great explanation. So we're going to move on to Sage, who's going to talk about the new Symbol Builder app.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Noah. That was really cool. See the new Places service. The new Symbol Builder application, it provides a UI for creating any symbol in the JavaScript SDK. And it also provides you with a snippet that you can copy and paste into your code. It's replacing the older Symbol Playground application that we've had available before, but it was rewritten with calcite components, React, and our SDK, and hopefully streamlines and modernizes the UI. So in this instance, we've got fill symbol here. You can see the properties over here on the left-hand panel. And if we change any of these properties, we'll see both the symbol preview shown here in the center in this map view. And we'll also see a code snippet over here on the right-hand side that we can easily copy and paste into our code. For symbols that support both 2D and 3D views, you can simply toggle between them, and it should maintain the symbology between the two different views. You can also see this like live, so it takes up So you have like more screen real estate and you're not constrained inside of our documentation website. And some symbols like polygon symbol 3D or all the 3D symbols actually contain multiple symbol relators. So the way that we can handle that in this application is to, we've got this drop-down menu, so we can add any number of different symbol layers. So if we wanted to add like a water symbol 3D layer and an object symbol 3D layer, and maybe change this from a sphere into like a cone or something, we now have our symbol displayed here. If we're happy with it, we can choose from one of 3 different code snippets we can copy out. So in this case, I want to use like a AMD require statement in my code. So I'm just going to copy out kind of this portion of the code here because I've actually got that require statement already in it. And I can replace my polygon symbol 3D layer here, symbol here, and we'll see it update the same as it was in the symbol builder application. And I hope you guys find this useful. That's really about all I've got to show.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sage. This is such a great tool for developers to create symbology quickly. And you had a reaction in the chat of like a surprised jaw-dropping face. So I think people are going to like it.
I hope so.
All right, next up, we're going to pass it to Julie, who's going to talk about some stream layer updates and a lot more. So go ahead.
All right, thanks, Anne. Okay, so I'm going to start with talking about our new value picker widget. It's this little guy down here, and basically lets you step through or play through a bunch of values. So this is a sample we made a long time ago. Christian made flash floods by season. And I can go ahead and play it, and it'll play through the different seasons, and you can kind of see it kind of like circulate through those values. You can also use this little combo box to go and like pick the season you want. So this is a very flexible widget that has all different kinds of configurations of how you can use it, and I'll show a couple examples of that. But to looking at some of the basics, really, in this case, I just set it up with some hard-coded values, winter, spring, summer, fall. And then I created the value picker widget, told it that I wanted a combo box, or created a combo box that is the horizontal layout. And then I'm basically watching for the values changing. So one aspect of value picker is it has all this nice, ability to play through these different values and everything, but you're in charge of handling the events and actually doing something with it. So it's not actually directly tied to the view. You have to listen for the events or listen for the changes to the values and then react to it. So this is a really simple use case of it. So looking at another example, this is another sample that's been around for a while, and it's using unique values. And this is kind of cool because what this one's doing is rather than hard coding the different values that it's playing through, it actually uses the smart mapping to find all the possible unique values in that layer. So it finds all the different crop types, and then basically it goes through and populates the value picker with all the different values it finds in that layer. So you can make it really dynamic. So you can start seeing that the value picker, really you figure out what data you want it. You don't even need data in it. You can use it just as, for playing through like extents. You can choose to put whatever values you want in from a layer. You can hard code it. Basically, it's totally up to you what you're going to use inside the value picker. This is the sample. It's part of the SDK. So these are 2 value pickers. This is a pretty cool sample. The first one, the first value picker here, this is actually working with imagery layers, and it's setting the time info. So I can look at the land cover in 2017 or 2018. So by changing this, basically it's looking at the current value, watching that value, and then when it changes the year, it actually sets that time info on the layer and displays that imagery for that layer. This one is actually playing through raster functions. So this one's looking at the cartographic render. I can look at bare ground areas only. So you kind of see it applying the different raster functions based on what's selected. One little thing to notice here, you see this is not a drop down. That's because the value picker gives you the option of just displaying a label or doing the combo box, or you could even do a slider, which I'll show you in a minute. Or actually none of those. You could just have these controls. So really, you're basically deciding what you want to display and just how you want to use it and tie it into your data. I think the product engineer that built this might not be happy that I'm showing this sample. It's not a sample, it's just like a test app, but actually it shows like all the different permutations you can have with value picker. Here you see you have the slider, you have a drop down, you have this label, you have horizontal, vertical. So really, this is a very slim widget with all different kinds of ways that you can use it depending on your workflow. So check it out. You can learn more about it and all the different options you have in the API reference. Okay, so with that, I'm going to move on to stream layer. So this is not a new layer type. We've had this for quite a long time. This is for when you want to basically receive push notifications from the server. So you're not doing a refresh on the layer. You're basically opening WebSocket and you're getting data in real time whenever there's an update available. So what is new is we used to, in the Forex API, basically you had to create your own stream layer and you could work with it in your code, or you could have used Map Viewer Classic to create a web map with stream layer. Now this is part of the new Map Viewer, or now it's not new anymore. This is part of the Map Viewer, where you can use all the bells and whistles of Map Viewer and apply that to designing your stream layer, saving it to your web map, and then loading it into your application. So in this example, I'm looking at world flights, and one thing you can do with stream layers is you can stop it or play it to continue to receive the messages and display it on your screen. You can also do things that you never could have done in the Map Viewer Classic, which is doing the data-driven symbology. And here, in my case, I've picked altitude that I want to symbolize as. And let's see if we can find some flights. You can see some itty-bitty ones down there. I basically sized them based on how high they're flying. So this works just as you would with any other layer type. This is a calcite vector symbol that I've used. Other things that I've done is I've put a drop shadow to kind of like separate it from the base map, kind of give it like a shadow, like on the ground almost, and bloom so that you can, like when it's flying over the ocean, see all these people going to Hawaii, lucky them, kind of have it glowing over the ocean. You can instead do like a brightness and contrast. Anyway, you can play around with all the things you can do in Map Viewer. And then once you like it, save it, and now you've got it saved to your web map. I could go ahead and copy that and web map ID and place it in this sample that you've probably seen me demo 1,000 times, and then you see your stream layer come to life. Now, one thing to note, of course, once this layer is in your application as developers, you can do anything you want with it as if you've created it, directly in your code. So what I've done is I've taken that web map that I've loaded, and I'm using value picker with a slider, and now I'm just filtering based on altitude. So you can build any sort of workflow you want in your application. But it really simplifies the code to load it, to do all your styling and all of the things you want to do in terms of authoring in the map viewer, and then just load it into your code as a web map. One fun thing that I did is I used blending. Although I guess if you're looking at flights, I don't know if you might want to see where they're coming from, but maybe you're only looking at what's in California. So what I did there just for fun is I used a census layer and I used blending to basically mask out everything outside of California. Just kind of a fun thing. And then I can easily just bring that into my app like I did before, and then use that in my app instead. Oops. Let me press enter and refresh. So that is all about stream layer and value picker. So that was the last topic that I was going to cover, except I wanted to plug our user conference that's happening in a little over a week. So we're all gearing up for this. We do have a developer day that's dedicated, of course, to developers. I'm going to put this URL in the chat so you can check out this blog and see all the things that we'll be doing there. We do have a number of technical sessions we'll be presenting, overviewing our latest technology, kind of looking at the most popular tech that people we think are coming to user conference will want to learn about. There's developer social. There's all kinds of things. There's a map gallery. There's the team that will be at the showcase, so you can meet the dev team and talk about your project, get help. So hoping to see a lot of you in San Diego at our user conference. And so with that, I'll hand it back to Anne to wrap up.
Yeah, well, first, before we wrap up, I have a question for you, Julie. Do you have any good resources or documentation for building a stream layer source?
I do. A stream layer source?
Yeah, like the stream layer itself, I guess, or the service.
Okay, yeah. So stream layer can be basically created using the our geo event product, ArcGIS Velocity product, or via like a custom stream. Basically, you're in charge of implementing your own WebSocket. In the chat, I'll post in links to learn about all three of those options. So in terms of how you put your stream service together.
Awesome. And then I have a question in the chat for Sage. If we can bring him back on, are there any good, oh wait, no. Other question. Is there a way to try out different classification and or color ramps in the symbol builder?
No, not at this time, really. It's just built off a single graphic without any attributes. So there's really no way to apply like a color ramp to different symbol values or whatever, different attribute values. No, not at this time.
All right. We've got a couple more questions coming in. First question is this demo session recorded? And if yes, where will it be available? And the answer is yes, it's recorded. It'll be available right here at the same link on YouTube. Once we finish the live stream, it'll be there. Let's finish up with a couple more questions. Can you connect a stream layer to a Google Firebase database?
So we don't have like actually I don't know enough about Google Firebase and if that's something you can connect through Velocity or GeoEvent. But if you wanted to do something directly, basically we have an implementation of Streamlayer where you can manage your own WebSocket, your own real-time data you're bringing in. So there's multiple options for connecting to custom ways of implementing Streamlayer. There's even a recent one where it's like basically you could just pass it a collection, so you can manage grabbing the data from wherever you're getting it from and then populating the stream layer. So there's several options for how you could make that work. But I don't know enough about ArcGIS Velocity and that particular type of real-time data source to tell you enough about that. So you'll have to research Velocity.
Sounds good. And then one final question before we wrap up about editing. Are forms now a requirement for editing attribution? My changes to the pop-ups are not honored in the editing prompts, for example, field visibility.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sorry, I posted or I thought that I posted a reply in the chat, but it doesn't appear to have gone through. Anyway, form templates are strongly recommended because they ensure the best, most predictable and most feature-rich editing experience for your users. But they are not a requirement. If there's no form template, you will see a default editing, a default feature form that lists all of the editable fields and allows editing them. There are a few properties that, if there's not a form template, we will read from the pop-up configuration, as Map Viewer Classic did. We continue to do that. And so if that's not working, Matt, feel free to make a post in Esri community with the details and we can investigate it.
Yeah, and that's a great segue to, if you do have any other questions, please post them in Esri community. We always are monitoring that. and try and interact with you all there. And yeah, that's about all we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you liked this content, this live stream, go ahead and give it a thumbs up on YouTube. And so yeah, stay tuned for the next one, and we hope to see you all at the user conference in July. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Brian.